We got Lantis in they, them in New York.
Okay, go ahead.
It says non-cognitive theism is a better middle ground for belief.
Lantis, can you hear us?
Hello. I can hear you guys. Yep.
Yeah, we can hear you
Yeah,
a
we can hear
little
you.
bit.
You're a little light.
Can we turn up the
So
volume a little bit?
how are you guys doing tonight?
That's good.
Good.
Doing excellent, Lantis. I'm intrigued by the little prompt here for your call here.
Yes. Just a quick shout out to my guy and call screener Cullen. He did a fantastic and excellent job call screening me. So I wanted to give him a shout out.
Cool. Yeah, he's a good guy.
Anyway, yeah, he is definitely. Definitely, yeah. So I wanted to talk about non-cognitive theism and as a better meeting ground for skeptics, spiritualists, those with religion, and atheists and agnostics to all meet. Because if non-cognitive theism is a belief in God or deities as such, while doubting their existence, and if you can add agnosticism in the mix and say, hey, throw your hands up and say, I don't know if any deities exist or don't exist, and then you can throw a little bit of atheism in the mix as you're cooking a recipe, you're making bread or cooking any recipe, is there a dash a little bit of atheism in there and say, I'm not necessarily convinced of any God claim or God's claims.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, so we've got a good recipe going on with that in the mix, with all that going on. You know what I mean? It's a good
I'm not sure. I want to start out with what exactly you mean by non-cognitive theism. I thought I knew what you meant, but then when you started talking, I thought maybe I had the wrong idea. So can you please explain exactly what you mean by that?
Sure. Yeah. By what I mean by non-cognitive theism is that we say we don't believe necessarily that God exists. We doubt he exists, yet we do give a little bit of belief in the direction that a God or deities like God may exist, whether they be or be not all benevolent or evil or omniscient or omnipowerful. We just don't know, because I also take the side of an agnostic. I would say I don't know, and I take the side of atheism. I'm not convinced.
Have you ever heard the term theosophical non-cognitivism?
No.
Okay, because that's what I thought you meant, was that. So it's basically the same thing you're saying, except the words are reversed, right? The theism and the non-cognitive part are reversed. So I'm not sure that because what you're talking about isn't the same as that. So you can understand how I got a little confused, right?
Right.
So I'm still a little unclear on what you mean there, Lantis. Are you saying that it's kind of an extreme? So you do or you don't believe in a God, or are you saying you don't believe, but then you're allowing for the possibility? Is that it, or something's not connecting in my brain here right now?
May I just take a second to clarify, if you don't mind?
Sure.
Yes, please.
Yeah. I would say that, and I want to challenge. Can I make a challenge to Jamie the Blind Limey real quick, since he's always listening and accepting challenges, as he says? He says he accepts a good challenge. I'd like to challenge him. I'd like to challenge because the last time I heard him call, he called in to comment about a caller that had called during a show, and he did that during a show. So here's my challenge to Jamie the Blind Limey. He said during the call, when he had called in, he said he likes religious paintings and iconography and religious architecture, although he would prefer that the world come to a place where we can do without all the dogma and all of the doctrine and theology, all the spiritism and the supernatural. However, I would say to do that would degrade all the architecture, iconography, the art, everything about it. Because without all the dogma and doctrine, the iconography and the architecture would have never arisen.
Okay, so you're wanting a response from
To
Jamie on that?
answer your question,
This reminds me of something that Richard Dawkins recently said and got a lot of kickback for when he said that he didn't want to discount something like he didn't want to discount cultural Christianity, and he got a lot of kickback for that. And I don't see a problem with enjoying cultural Christianity as an atheist, because there are some beautiful pieces of art. There is some beautiful architecture that came out of Christianity. That is the cultural heritage of the religion. And some of that is beautiful and should be appreciated. I don't see a problem with that.
Are you saying that the religious connotations add to the enjoyment of the art, or are you saying that the artists are inspired by sincerely held beliefs, or how would the God belief or lack thereof affect the artwork?
What you just said, you just asked me the question, but your question was both the answer. The dogma inspired the art and the architecture, and then the artists were also moved by the dogma, and the dogma inspired it. But also, to answer your other question, do I believe in a God, or do I doubt? I put my hand in a little bit. I put my left hand in and keep my right hand out, depending on the day, depending on whatever I'm going through. I will pour out a libation of what I'm drinking, or a food offering, or a tobacco offering, and I say, hey, can you help me out with this? Kind of like I like to bring things back to pop culture, because I think people can understand pop culture. Have you two seen the movie Tommy Boy with Chris Farley?
No.
So there's a scene spoiler alert, but there's a scene at the end of that film. He plays a bumbling kind of guy, of course. And at the end of that film,
Chris Farley? No. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Keep going.
He's talking to the ghost. He's talking to his father, who had died and who had passed away at the beginning of the movie. And he says, hey, Dad, he's on a boat in the middle of the lake. And he says, hey, Dad, do you think you'd help out? I need a little bit of wind here, but if not, that's okay too. And then he gets his wind. So he's like, so it's kind of like that. It was kind of like, gee, God or gods, could you help me out? Or just, hey, saying thanks for everything, but if you don't exist, this isn't going to harm me in any way. But if maybe I can throw a little belief into the mix, maybe that's all the gods are requiring. Not 100% belief, but just a little bit of belief in the mix to...
It sounds to me like you're trying to be a living form of Pascal's wager.
I was about to say, it sounds to me like you're hedging your bets. That's the same thing. Yeah.
So, but let me ask you this. So you're suggesting that you act in a way that you believe, or are you saying that you're trying to, I mean, because you can't, at least from what I understand, maybe I just don't get it, but you can't really believe and not believe at the same time. I understand that you can believe and then later on not believe, and then maybe later on again you start believing again. It just seems like what you're saying is more. Are you talking more of a way of describing your own belief and your own positions, or are you talking about ways when you're in your call or in the notes here it mentioned something about a better middle ground? Are you saying that you will kind of play the part a little bit to appease people that you happen to be sitting with or talking with, or are you saying just kind of go along with the show a little bit?
I do it on all levels, because like I don't necessarily do anything to appease anybody else, because I really don't care if people disagree with me or not, or hold my views or not. I think if we can meet peaceably at the end of the day and not treat each other like total crap, it's a success. It's a success. It's been a successful day. However, at the same moment in time, I do believe in God. I at least put a little bit of effort to believe in a deity or deities if I'm going to pour out a drink offering, because that's something I could have drinking and taken into my body with enjoyment. So I'm wasting it if the gods don't exist. So it might as well behoove me to put a little bit of effort into believing what I'm doing actually means something and has purpose to it. And the only way that pouring out a libation is going to have that effect is if I actually believe that the God that exists that I'm pouring it to, and that they're going to accept the drink offering.
I guess what the distinction that I'm asking about is between distinguishing between your actual belief, the state of whatever your state of belief is, whether you believe or you don't believe or whatever, versus acting, playing out a part, doing the rituals, doing, saying the prayers or going along, bowing your head, stuff like that. Would that be fair to say that you're separating those two, and that you're whether or not you believe? Now it's, to me, it seemed like I just heard you say that you do believe. Is that correct, or you don't believe, or?
I believe, yet I remain skeptical, and am not necessarily. I'm a soft atheist. I will admit, I'm a soft atheist. Now, I will say I am not yet necessarily convinced that any God claims have made it up to muster with me, though I'd be willing to take some evidence if presented with some, and I have some pretty good idea of what evidences I would take, but I wouldn't want to be confronted with those kind of evidences. And neither would you, so I'll save you from expelling them on the show, because probably get me banned.
Hey, I don't generally accept evidence. I want proof myself, but
that's what when I say evidence, yeah, I mean proof. That's what I meant. I meant proof. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, a lot of people say evidence, I think, when they mean proof. I'm just trying to get people to start saying the correct words.
So are you saying, it sounds to me like what you're describing is that you're an agnostic atheist, right? You don't believe, but you're open to the possibility. You don't claim knowledge of there not being a God. But it also seems like you're coupling that with some social graces, right? You're acting in such a way as to participate somewhat in the rituals of others. Is that what you're getting? Or when you say, like, you pour out your drink or something, make an offering to God just in case God's listening, right? Is it, what if you were by yourself and not around other religious people? Do you still do that kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay, so now it's really sounding like Pascal's wager. Like you're not believing, but you're kind of on you're not convinced necessarily one way or the other, but you're just kind of acting in a way, just in case, right? Would that be a fair way of describing it?
Let me jump in here. Pascal's wager is directly based on the notion of hell and a life thereafter in a purgatory and or hell or eternal suffering. I don't add any level of eternal suffering or punishment within this jurisdiction or context, because if you're only appeasing, you're not really pleasing. You have to come in all the texts, in all the sacred texts I've ever poured through, and I've poured through a lot of them. Humility, a contrite heart, purity, love, altruism, wisdom. These are all pure and sacred things. Faith, love, kindness, piety. These are all things that all the sacred texts talk about. And so you can't come to God or any gods or deities with a libation or any drink offering, any offering like that, or any even out of your mouth, and come to them and say, I'm only doing this to get out of one of your hells. That's not the right context in which to come to a God. Any of them.
Let me ask you something that might seem off the wall here. Is your family religious?
No.
No? Okay. Because I was going to say, because what you're describing sounds a little bit like something that I went through a little bit. I don't remember ever believing in God, although I may have. I grew up in a religious family, and so as I was coming to grips with my lack of belief, and eventually calling myself an atheist, I went through various stages where I remember a point in time where I thought, well, maybe nature has got, you kind of, there's some phases that are fairly common that many atheists go through as they're coming to grips to deal with their own personal lack of belief in the context of maybe having a family that's very strong believers. And so I know that there can be a strong psychological pull towards towards believing, if your family believes, or somebody that you really respect, if they're believers, that can encourage you to believe. And so it's for a second there, it sounded kind of similar, but then you said your family wasn't believers. Why do you feel that it's important to find that middle ground?
Fantastic question, Scott, but you'd never ask. Got a good answer for you, though.
You're setting us up. He's setting us up here. Okay. Sorry, Lantis. Go ahead. So,
Kelly, you ready for this one? Kelly, you ready for this?
All right.
Answer?
Hit us with the truth here.
Kelly, you ready? Okay. Truth wanted? This is truth wanted. Hopefully this is truth wanted, because this is some truth. This is my truth. It doesn't have to be your truth, because it's subjective, okay? But here's
And
the
it's
thing.
not truth, but okay.
I think religion, or any kind of spirituality that anyone wants to get involved with on this planet, whether it be ancient or new or somewhere in the middle, offers a kind of extra color or spice or flavor or texture, like silk or satin or velvet or red or blue or magenta or something like that, a fiery sunset or a sunrise, a green sunrise, even like they had in the early mid 1800s up here in the Hudson Valley of New York. When a volcano,
You know what? Come on, let's try to put what you're saying into some practical words instead of flowery poetic words. So, what is it that you feel that we are that we need?
Kelly, I'm a poet.
When you say something like the greenness of the sunrise, what exactly? Let's put it into more practical terms so everybody can understand it.
Sure, yeah. I just mean it's a different kind of color. Any religion or spirituality that someone wants to practice adds a color or a spice or a flavor and something. It can add something, and if it does add a flavor or a spice or a color or something meaningful into their lives, then let them practice it. But always, they even of themselves and in themselves should know they should practice it with some skepticism or doubt.
So are you saying that embracing people that have different beliefs is kind of adds to the colors of the tapestry of human experience? Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Not just that, but also letting yourself say, hey, maybe their beliefs are true to a certain extent, even going that far.
Okay, well, do you think that do you think being an atheist means that you can't do that? Because there are many people that call themselves agnostic atheists, and I'm one of them, and I think Kelly would say the same thing. Or
No, I'm an atheist.
You're an atheist.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, I mean, so would you? I mean, am I fitting what you're describing?
I think so. Yeah. I think
okay.
If you were offered with proof of God or any gods, I think you'd say, yeah, but I'm still not going to worship you. Maybe. I think maybe you would say that, or you would say, give me proof of that as to why I should worship you.
I'm open to the possibility of God, but only if I see some evidence supporting that belief.
Right.
I identify with the original meaning of non-cognitive theism, not this meaning.
Okay. Boy, we're confusing things up really, really well
that's
today.
Why I was confused, because he wasn't using the term the way it's normally used.
So Lantis, what is the advantage for doing this? Are you just saying you're ready and no matter what, so that way if somebody does provide any evidence for you, you're ready to lean one way if you need to, or are you hedging your bets, or are you considering yourself to be open-minded, or are you trying to find ways of connecting with people, or are you trying to avoid shutting down methods of communication, or what is the why?
It's not like I'm hedging my bet. I'm not hedging my bets because I don't believe in hellfire or any legitimate form of hell. I'm not necessarily trying to appease any group or person, even though I'd like to find a meeting ground and a middle ground with everyone that is of good report and is altruistic. And also, I'm also trying to just be open to the concept that spirituality in a spiritual realm and the supernatural and the God or gods might be real, because I think that those deities would have a lot to share with us, no matter what their power or level of omniscience is or knowledge is. You would imagine that if they have to have some level of knowledge, and I think it could be quite beneficial exchange between us, in the hereafter or at some point.
Don't you think it's important to establish that they're real before we start deciding what kind of knowledge they have?
I think it might be safe to say that a deity, just calling something a deity might imply that that thing called a deity has knowledge that is probably beyond our own capacity to think and wonder. And so I'm just saying I'm only postulating it, and I think we'll probably find out after we die, unless the catch is to offer some level of belief before we die. Otherwise, it's a dirt nap for the rest of eternity.
So you are just hedging your bets. I mean, you keep saying you're not, but the way you keep describing your beliefs, that's exactly what it is.
Well, that only works its way into my belief system in that I have a high fear of death, like in general, and I've been under anesthesia more than one time where it was.
I just don't understand why, like, the belief, like hedging your bets and the belief of God has to do with death. Because a belief in God helps people. You can ask any theist; they're going to tell you that belief in God is going to help them out in life too. So again, and you just keep tying your hedging your bets in with death. Well, that isn't the only reason why you might be hedging your bets in a belief on God.
Right. It's also, I think right there, Kelly, in a roundabout way, you brought up the theodicy question, don't you?
I'm not sure. What question?
The theodicy. Because the theodicy is all about hedging your bets, ultimately. Because if suffering is in this world, the ultimate question is not what is the problem of suffering is the theodicy question, but the question beyond the theodicy is why, and the question that everyone gets when they're talking about the theodicy is why doesn't a deity or deities do anything about human suffering? I don't know. Maybe they can't. Maybe it's the godlike prime directive. Once a society falls and they fall to a certain point, they take the training wheels off, or until societies reach a certain level of knowledge, they won't interact. They won't do miracles. And besides, why doesn't God provide food for the starving children in the world? He could turn mountains into mashed potatoes and rivers and streams into a soda pop if he wanted to, if he's all powerful, that is. But they'd be dirty in a day.
Well, Lantis, let me ask you this: were you always believing in this manner, or were you ever a theist or an atheist, I suppose, or that did you ever believe differently than you do now? I'm curious. This is interesting, the way that you're presenting this. To me, it sounds like you're playing a part, but you keep insisting that that's not the case. And so I'm interested to hear how this might be seeming to you in your head. But I want to know, did you always think this way? Was this something you developed at a particular time in your life? Are you, what's your motivation for doing this? Because to me, it doesn't seem like what you're doing is really, if I was a god and you were pouring drinks for me, but you didn't actually believe in me, to me, that probably wouldn't do a whole lot for me. And so,
I offer some level of belief. I say, if you're there, this is for you. And I sincerely mean it. I do sincerely mean every time I pour. I wouldn't pour out a drink libation if I didn't mean it and sincerely in that moment believed in whichever deity I was pouring it out.
Okay, why do you think it's important to show that belief at that time?
It's kind of like because it's just my opinion that maybe and perhaps that some beauties and some imaginations in this world have come to us via inspiration through a deity or more than one spirit. And I think we owe them a little bit of devotion to that, and a little bit of something, and a little bit of a thank you. You know, I think that there was, I mean, the scriptures talk about how there was a war in heaven, and like that war in heaven, the scriptures never said that it ended. How do we know?
Do you think that your approach to religion here, do you think that that is in accordance with evidence and reason? Do you think that you're being rational?
Here's the thing. If I describe my beliefs, let me just preface this. And it's a good question. Thoughts you never asked. Got a really good answer. Let me preface this by saying I'm neurally divergent. I'm on the scale for autism, and I've been diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder. So
okay.
If I'm coming off as a little bit too passionate or a little bit too manic, I can tend to get this way, especially about a subject that I'm impassionated about. Now I hear I've talked to like this voice that's introduced itself as God. I talked to Thor, Loki, Odin, Zeus, Persephone, Aphrodite, Hades. I talked to pretty much almost all everyone in the pantheon. I take this disorder with 2 giant grains of salt on each shoulder and a giant grain of salt on the very top of my head. It's my coping mechanism with it. It's to say maybe I'm hearing from all these spiritual deities, and my other coping mechanism is to say maybe it's all coming from a part of my subconscious that leaks into my id and my ego, and like maybe these voices. When I ask these questions to these godlike voices in my head and I get these specific answers, maybe it's all just my subconscious thinking up answers right on the spot to ease my mind where these questions would seek to cause me ill thoughts.
So do you think that your approach to belief then is based off of the way things really are about reality, or do you think it's maybe a way of you for coping with your feelings about the situation? Do you have external motivation or internal motivation on this?
Good question.
I think I would say it's both. I would say it's external and internal. And in the sense that it's internal, my brain, which is internal in my skull, my brain says to me, listen, this is what you should believe about religious thought and skeptical thinking. Why not combine the two? Why not throw in a dash of atheism, a soft atheism, agnosticism? Why not throw in a little dash of belief every now and again or all the time, if it's only a little bit? It's not.
So you're trying to make sense of your feelings and the things that you're thinking and the things that you're experiencing in your life. It's kind of a way of resolving these different thoughts and experiences that you're having. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, and also externally, I also deal with it externally and view it externally in the sense that I think I have come to a rational conclusion about the subject matter of doubt, disbelief, unbelief, whatever you want to call it, and belief. I think the ultimate conclusion is we cherry pick. Why do we cherry pick? Because to get the bad apples separated from the good cherries.
Mm-hmm. So if I were to say to you that the reason that I don't believe in a God, and I am open to the possibility of there being a God, if I were ever to see any evidence or proof that there was a God, do you think that I'm not giving enough? Do you think I'm being too close-minded, or do you think I'm being open-minded enough by, I will say flat out that I don't believe that there is a God. I'm not saying that I feel any kind of certainty that there is no God, but my approach is that I say to myself that I just don't believe that there is a God, and I think that's an accurate description of myself, and I'm comfortable with that. Although I can imagine situations where I might not be comfortable saying that, and where I'd be maybe seeking to incorporate, other thoughts that I might have. Is that kind of, do you think that's fair to say?
I think.
And do you think that I'm missing something do you think I'm missing some of the human experience because I'm not being open to those kinds of things?
I think you're missing a spiritual experience, not a human experience. I think you're missing a spiritual experience. I think you're missing a sacred experience.
What is that?
Holy experience.
What is a spiritual experience?
A spiritual, I think, and also a divine experience. I think you're missing a spiritual experience is something that takes you out of the body, out of the mind, out of the comfort of any space in time and all of reality, and something that totally transcends all your thoughts, all your thinking, anything you've ever thought before, every instance you've ever had in your entire life, turns it inside out, outside in, backwards, frontwards, every which way, outways, and all like that, and then you look at the whole world from a totally different perspective.
So what has been some of the benefits of approaching things this way? Do you think that there are benefits and possibly some drawbacks to approaching the God question in this way?
I think for me, and I can only speak personally on this one, I know that maybe you and Kelly would have different answers, and I'd like to hear, because I've seen you many times, and I don't know your religious background, and I would like to hear it again for a refresher, if you don't mind, if we get a minute. But at any rate, for me personally, I've had good experiences and bad experiences with this kind of harmonic level of thinking that I've reached in my approach to religion, spirituality, and atheism and agnosticism. And I've had pushback, and I've had pushback and good receptions all of the way around. I have a fundamentalist Christian evangelical friend who is to the point where he accepts the fact that I go to spiritualistic medium type ship gatherings and occult and pagan gatherings on Zoom, Meetup, and I've gotten pushback from evangelical fundamentalist friends that don't think that some of the new thoughts that I have about spirituality and religion should be thought in a good Christian's mind, and that troubles me. But I've only gotten pushback from severe Republicans and like fundamentalist Christians. I haven't gotten liberals and those who are open and atheists and agnostics. I've gotten good feedback from.
Well, Lantis, I appreciate you sharing that with us. I will say this. I do applaud you for being self-reflective. I think that's something that's very important. And I appreciate the fact that you are trying to make sense of things as you see them and as you feel them and as you experience them. And, so I may disagree with some of the things you said, but I'm not you. I haven't experienced your life and I don't know how things look through your eyes. One of the things that I love doing these call-in shows is I get to hear about other people's lives and other people's experiences. So I want to give you kudos for that. I think it's great that you're doing that. And I think that I would encourage you to continue to be reflective, to think about your thought process,